Everyone is addicted to something, whether it's sugar, cigarettes, sex, drugs. But I've found that addiction can be a superpower. And when you direct that energy into things that serve you, you can create a life of abundance. You can get addicted to guitar, in my case. I've gotten addicted to meditation and breath work and yoga and these things that ultimately allow me to be the best version of myself. I don't think addiction is necessarily a bad thing.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that there's bad addictions?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how'd you kind of flip the script from like being addicted to bad things and then being addicted to things that are helping you become a better person?
Well, there is alternating degrees of addiction, right? We ultimately want to feel something. That's what we strive for. That's why we fall in love. That's why we have sex. That's why we go and spend a bunch of money on a fancy dinner, because we want to feel something. And I found that I was seeking that feeling through consumption. I was seeking that feeling through watching South Park and stuffing my face with Oreos and smoking dab carts and ripping my vape every chance I got. That was what I was seeking. But when I replaced those addictions with things that gave me that similar feeling, except they were creative outlets, art, songwriting, study of philosophy, these various different other practices.
Yeah. So I think it's important to talk about the actual physical action, like, of addiction. Like, a lot of the things that you mentioned you used to be addicted to were like oral, like having that oral fixation. And for me, that was like a very similar case. I mean, from a very, very young age, I was obsessed with my binky. What else do you call that? Pacifier. And it was really hard for me as a baby, as a toddler, to let go of it. And it was something that brought me comfort at a very young age. And I think that I carried that oral fixation into my teenage years, into my adulthood. That kind of led to my oral addictions. I needed to have the act of smoking, just like putting something to my mouth. I enjoyed having the act of eating. Like, all of those things were kind of trying to fill that initial feeling from the binky that kind of manifested into their own addictions later on that maybe weren't like the best for me. Did you have a binky thing?
I sucked my thumb.
Oral fixation, yeah.
Yeah, and that fed into a whole lot of other things over the years, where the sucking the thumb, and then you have the braces, and you pick at the braces, and you bite your fingernails.
Yeah.
And similarly, I always had different cravings with food and sugar and candy, which is another oral fixation, then picking up a Juul and a vape and smoking. It's interesting how these tendencies you have as a child end up turning into an alternate counterpart as you grow old.
Yeah, and like something that starts very innocently, like, can become very damaging for you as you grow older. Like, sucking on your vape is the same feeling and need that you're desiring when you're 2 years old and you're scream crying and mommy puts the binky in your mouth, right? It's
or
like
a titty.
Or a titty. Correct. But it's comfort, right? You're eating that comfort just for a little while.
Well, I think that's what addiction is.
Yeah.
Being addicted to anything is a feeling of comfortability.
Yeah. You're just trying to like take the edge off, right? That's like people say that shit all the time. I need to smoke a cigarette. I need to take the edge off.
Well, it's doing something comfortable. It's stepping back into old habits. It's easy.
Yeah.
Stepping back into what you know to be who you are.
Yeah.
Your addictions become a part of you.
Mm-hmm.
Like as you create this personality, we create our personal reality. It's all these labels that we have for ourselves, all these judgments, and all these attachments that we have. And all these attachments are an extension of us.
Yeah. Yeah, I've talked about before on the podcast that Like I was 100% addicted to weed, and it was who I was. It was my identity. I was the stoner girl. So when I was coming out of that and trying not to smoke and figuring out who I was like without it, I felt hypocritical to like show up in the world as somebody who didn't smoke, because it became such a massive part of my identity. So I think that like when you're overcoming your addictions or when you're shedding them, there is like a sense of like letting that part of you kind of die and like coming to terms with being okay with that, because it's uncomfortable to move on from something that was so comfortable to you.
When you embody what it is that you're attached to, it's difficult to leave behind. It's difficult to kill that version of you.
Yeah.
Like, and when you do face an addiction and make a decision that you're not addicted to that thing anymore, you are effectively, like you said, killing that old version of you.
Yeah. And sometimes like it's just a matter of, it's not serving you and it's not good for you. But sometimes that's not enough to stop. Like sometimes you just don't care. So you kind of got to like search for a reason to give it up.
What was your reason to give up
pot?
Yeah.
I felt like the cons were outweighing the pros at a certain point. I just felt like I was living in an alternate reality and I wasn't here on Earth, and my anxiety that was once soothed when I started smoking weed became heightened when I would smoke weed. So I just took a step back and was like, the reason I started smoking was to calm my anxiety. And now, 7 years later, my anxiety is worse than it's ever been. So why do I continue to do this? Those were like the two biggest things for me. Yeah.
And what made it easy?
To stop?
Yeah, because I feel like you've talked about how it wasn't necessarily a difficult thing.
I think what made it easy was how good I felt not to do it. It felt so freeing to not be controlled by something, to not feel like I needed it, to be able to go out to dinner with my friends and not worry about at what point in the night am I going to hit a joint in my car before we go inside, or I have to bring my bowl, or I'm out of weed, I got to go get weed, I don't have a lighter. Like there was just, I was controlled by smoking, and it was consuming to the point even where the high doesn't last when you smoke a lot, right? It's like very quick and then it fades. So it was really all I thought about. It was get high, high fades, get high again. And it was like this perpetual cycle. And I think having the feeling of no longer being controlled by something made it easy for me not to let go of it.
I've seen and heard in the past that when you are on a path of self-realization and self-improvement and growth, that these habits that don't serve you typically fall off when they're ready.
Yeah.
It may take a little bit of conscious effort, but it's more difficult for you to continue to do them than it is to just not.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how I felt. It was becoming like a burden.
Well, you're a slave to your own desires when you're addicted to things.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, I can't imagine how the tweakers in New York City feel.
Yeah.
Like just thinking about their next high. How are they going to get enough money for their next high? There's a lot of people that are just so blindly addicted to not only hard drugs, but like little things.
Yeah, the degree of addiction varies, right? Like there's obviously a very large problem in our world with people being addicted to drugs, and that's a whole kind of separate conversation, but you can be addicted to the smallest things. I mean, all of us are addicted to our phones. All of us are addicted to scrolling, and we are a victim to the scroll. Like we are absolutely 100% controlled by our phones.
Yeah. And even myself, I mean, I still have addictions to sugar.
Of course.
I've dealt with addictions to nicotine. I mean, I go to Mexico and I smoke some cigarettes, and it's like, fuck, like I could have kicked that one. And then I come home and it's like, okay, I get out of that environment where it felt comfortable, and it's easier to kick these things. But I have found that being able to take that energy that you put into these addictions and place them in something else is much easier than if a big part of you stopping smoking was also going to Costa Rica.
Yeah.
We went for a month, and you were able to put your attention and awareness in something entirely unknown, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Now, if you're doing something like that here and you say, I don't want to smoke powder anymore, I don't want to smoke cigarettes anymore, you have to be able to direct that energy into something its energetic equivalent. Mm-hmm. So if something that you're super addicted to, like myself, I was super addicted to, I don't know, say vaping, right? Mm-hmm. I needed to be able to direct that energy into something else. Mm-hmm. I need to direct that energy into Zins at first. It was like, okay, like let me stop vaping. I'll just start doing Zins.
Yeah.
It's another oral fixation. And it's like, okay, like, well, I don't want to do Zins anymore. So I can direct my attention into sunflower seeds, or I can direct my attention into toothpicks or mints. You know, it's like something doesn't have the addictive thing in it. Right. So it's like almost just transmuting your addictions in that way. That's still an oral fixation now.
Right.
Now a step above that is say smoking pot. You're addicted to smoking pot. I had found when I'd never really had like a major attachment to pot.
Yeah.
I mean, I did, but it wasn't as dramatic as yours. And for me, pot just kind of fell off because I replaced it with things that I loved. I found that when I was super high, I couldn't learn how to play guitar, and I couldn't read books, and I couldn't do all the things that I wanted to do. Yeah. Make sense of these thoughts. So ultimately, when I started placing my attention and my awareness into things that I love doing, things that lit me up, the pot just fell off. Because I was playing guitar every day, and I love to do that, and I love that more than I love the pot.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you're stoned, beyond oblivion, you can't really play, can't really read, can't really write songs, you know, sometimes, but the 1 in 100 times definitely isn't useful. Yeah. I think there's also an element of like shedding the environment around you, because for me, my main addiction has obviously been the weed thing, and there was like a massive element of shedding my external environment. All the people I hung out with smoked a lot of pot. All my friends were stoners. So it was not only me stopping and me like removing myself from my attachment to the pot, but it was also a level of me removing myself from the attachment to my friends and my friend group, because that's what we did when we hung out.
And it's also the people around you reinforce these attachments that you have.
Exactly. And when my friends found out that I hadn't smoked weed in a week, they were on the floor, shocked. And there was definitely like moments of like, you know, did I do something wrong? Are they still going to be friends with me because I don't smoke pot anymore? Like all of those things that kind of come into your head, and we're still cool. And they don't care if I don't smoke pot. And honestly, if anything, they smoke a lot less pot now.
What have you seen your energy start to shift into since you stopped?
I think that I actually have a morning routine and a night routine. And that has been like so productive for me. The routine previously was wake up and smoke, go to bed and smoke. There was nothing else. It was eat a lot of food at night and get super stoned and watch really useless TV until my eyes closed. And in the morning I would smoke before I even brushed my teeth. So there was no structure. There was no routine. So I think being able to have a routine in the morning and take care of myself and have a couple of minutes in the morning to brush my hair and wash my face and like care for myself in a way that I had never done before is like very good for my mental health.
It's been nice to watch you evolve from smoking as much as you did.
Yeah.
Because you were, I mean, I joke and say you were D and now you're Deanna.
Yeah, but it's like kind of not a joke. Yeah. I was stoned all the time. I feel like sometimes too, like, and if you, I don't know, like it is kind of sad to like look back at myself and just like see videos and pictures, and it's just like I was always stoned. Always. It's definitely like a little bit sad to see that like 17, 18-year-old me just kind of like, oh girl, put the bong down. Like you don't need to hit it one more time. It's okay. You know, you're high enough. It's okay. But we live and we learn.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when we went on our first date.
Let's tell that story. Yeah, go ahead.
Because I knew that most of the time our relationship was mainly built on us smoking pot together in college. A lot of it.
Yeah, definitely.
In the beginning, like our friendship was like, oh, let's
hang out and smoke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And which was great. And like we had great conversations. We got to know each other deeply. We ended up on the radio together. But then when it came time and we confessed our love for each other, and then we got to figure out what we're doing, and it turns into us kissing after the bar one night in your kitchen. And then the next day it's like, all right, we're going to go on a date. You were super nervous.
Very nervous.
And you're putting on a pink dress for me and getting all done up with your hair done, and I'm picking you up. And I remember on the way over there thinking like, I hope she doesn't smoke. Because, like, obviously I knew you were going to be nervous. I was nervous. But it would have been a sense of escape if you smoked. We wouldn't have been on the same wavelength. We wouldn't have been resonating together.
It's a cop-out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then on the flip end of that, getting ready was like very nervous. Like there was just a lot going on, and my roommates were running to Target to get me shoes. It was just like chaos in the house. And I'm all ready. I have my pink dress on, and I'm just like, I lived in the basement in college. So I walk upstairs. I'm standing by the front door waiting for Corey to pick me up, and all my roommates are there, and they're all like, hee hee hee, like this is going to be so great, like whatever. And I was just like, I got to go smoke. And the entire time I was getting ready, I was kind of like debating it. Like, should I smoke before? If I have time, I will. If I don't have time, I won't. Like, I was kind of all over the place about it. And then in that like waiting period, waiting for you to come get me, I was just like, the nerves just kind of got to me, and I needed to feel something. I needed to feel comforted by what I knew comforted me. And I was like, fuck it, I'm going to smoke. So I walk back downstairs. I turn on my dab rig. I'm waiting for my dab rig to heat up. And I'm just sitting there staring at it, borderline about to throw up. And I was just like, I don't know. There was just like this feeling that like, if you smoke before this date, what's the point of going? Like, it's just going to be like every other experience you've had with every other guy, because you're not going to be there. And that was kind of like my whole thing, is that like I never really showed people who I was. So I was just like, shut the dab rig off, walked upstairs. You immediately texted me you were here, so there was no more time to think about if I should smoke again or not. And then, yeah, I got in the car and we went on our date.
And I told you when we were there.
Yeah. You asked me later, and like in the night, you asked me if I smoked.
No, I didn't ask you. I said I knew you were high.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And I said, well, honestly, if you showed up stoned, it probably would have been a deal breaker.
Yeah. And I was like, really? But I just liked that you had like high expectations for me and like for a future partner, and that you had standards that you weren't willing to waver. And that was like, I liked that you challenged me.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. And I think both of us have jumped over many hurdles together in our relationship.
Yeah.
And a lot of these different addictions and vices that we've helped each other with and talked about and worked through together. Like, I mean, I know the weed was the one for you that you worked through. And I mean, I worked through, I would say my biggest addiction was the first one that I had. It was porn.
Yeah.
And I was like 12 years old. Maybe 11 years old, watching porn for the first time. And it's so weird because there's so much sexual degeneracy in our society nowadays, where it's so normal for middle school boys to be watching porn and releasing and seeing things that they're not ready to see. Yeah. Specifically boys. I think girls get curious and such, but like boys specifically are watching like full on porn, hardcore porn at young ages. Yeah. And it feels good. It's brain candy. Because you have you go from never seeing a girl naked. I had never even seen a girl naked in my life. And then next thing you know, I'm watching girls get banged all over the place on the beach in Europe, and all 3 guys and whatever, like, it's like, what the fuck?
And it's in your pocket.
And it's in my pocket.
And you can pull it up whenever.
Yeah. And that was super tough going through that. And honestly, this is probably the first time I've ever talked about it on the internet. Yeah. Now, but like, that was such an interesting experience through my youth to be working with that. That was something I worked with and was addicted to from the time I was like probably 11 or 12. Probably 12, I would say, until I was 21. Yeah. I watch porn almost every day, releasing every day. And now I'm very much on like the semen retention and keeping my energy within and transmuting this creative energy that I have, but I didn't know any of that stuff. And because that wasn't taught to me in school. And all I knew is this feels good. She's hot. This feels good.
Yeah. And there's an aspect of porn that is so taboo and don't do it. You can't watch porn, right? So it makes you kind of want to watch it more. It makes you, as a little boy, as a little girl, be curious about what porn even is. What does porn mean, right? You go to look up the word, you're going to find porn. Like, there's no other way around it. So I think even like culturally having that shame around porn and around sex already naturally causes curiosity around something that humans are naturally going to be curious about growing up. You know what I mean? So it's like even more heightened because we're shamed not to do it.
Well, I think human beings have this curiosity to anything that we're told not to do. Yeah. Anything that seems taboo, anything that seems out of the norm or forbidden.
And sex is something that's already naturally being explored through our bodies as we go through puberty. And having that element of we can't do that just adds to the I want to do that.
Well, I think a big aspect of the porn for myself, and also for I'm sure a lot of other guys in my age group, most other guys,
a lot.
I think most guys go through this phase where they're watching all of this porn and ejaculating every single day, and they don't talk about it. Because when you're 12 or 13 years old, you're not telling your friends that you watch some girl get banged on the internet. You're keeping that in within. You're not telling anybody. It's a secret that you take for your grave because there's so much guilt and shame associated with this lust that you're feeling. Because you've been told your whole life that this is bad. You've been told that you can't look at women that way, right? And honestly, you aren't even really told that until you start experiencing it. Yeah. And then you're shamed for it, and this thing that feels good in your body. It feels good to masturbate and ejaculate and watch porn. Yeah. And it feels good in your body. You're like, wow. But at the same time, everybody outside of you is like, that's not good. That's not good. So it makes you even hide into a shell and not be able to seek any help outside of yourself. And it's something that so many guys, so many boys go through at a young age with no outlet.
Yes, this like really, really terrible loop that porn addiction creates. Because it's you're feeding into that shame, you're feeding into that guilt, and then it feeds into that silence of don't talk about it, don't tell anyone, and then it's just it keeps going around and around and around, and the next thing you know, you've been watching porn every single day, maybe a couple times a day for the last 10 years. And you've been through every single video on Pornhub. There's none left for you.
Every video on Pornhub.
You know, like you ran them dry.
Yeah.
Then that's a problem. And it's a big problem for little boys and for boys as they get older, and it's a problem when they're in relationships. And their girlfriend's like, hello, why do you need to watch porn to get off?
Yeah. We all have these different we have all these different vices. Everybody has different vices. Like porn's one of them, marijuana's one of them, nicotine, sugar, heroin.
I mean, the scale is
we
vast.
are fortunate enough that we haven't dealt with really any of them that have been super detrimental to our health and relationships.
Yep.
Which I'm fortunate for, which I'm thankful.
Yep, me
and
as
I've
well.
never experimented with hardcore drugs or anything like that. And I know people who have.
And I feel like I know that I have an addictive personality. I know that about myself. I've known that about myself for a really long time. So I feel grateful to have known that about myself from a very young age, because maybe I would have, you know? Like that's something that I recognize is in me. And every time that something like that has sort of presented itself to me, I'm grateful that my psyche has reminded me that you have an addictive personality. Maybe don't snort that coke.
Well, also the addictive personality, like we started with, is a superpower.
Yeah.
The addictive personality is what has us set up these cameras and these lights and run a podcast in the middle of the afternoon on a Saturday.
Yep.
And not go to the bar. And addictive personality is why I sit upstairs and I write songs every night, and why I decided to go to jiu-jitsu one day. I went to jiu-jitsu for one day and then signed up and have gone 4 days a week for almost the last year.
Yeah.
Like the addictive personality can drive you into the things that really feed your soul.
Yeah,
absolutely. You can get addicted to these feelings, right? I can get addicted. I'm addicted to surfing. I get this freaking itch in my stomach when there's waves and I can't be out there. I'm addicted to it.
He needs the waves.
Yes, I need the waves. And that's not bad per se. Maybe my attachment to it is. Maybe if I let it get over the things that matter and let it destroy relationships. Maybe if I'm supposed to be there for you and I decide to take the waves, you know, that could cause a little turmoil.
Right.
But overall, these different quote unquote creative vices that I have, I love doing them. And the big part of that is my addictive personality. And I used to be like, fuck, I'm at the mercy of my addictive personality. But when I learned to transmute that energy into these things, it made my life so much better. And it's the reason that I'm doing so successfully in business right now at 23. It's the reason why I'm making all these videos. It's the reason why I'm writing a book. It's the reason why I write all these songs. It's the reason why we have such a great relationship. Honestly, it all comes down to the fact that when we pick something, we go all in, because that's what addiction is. You pick something and you go put all your fucking eggs in one basket.
Yeah. Just flip the script around, because I agree. That was a huge shift for me, was not being at the mercy of your addiction and learning to use it and use it as that superpower, because it can do really great things for you.
Yeah. So let those addictions do really great things for you. This was me and mine, and we've got tons of episodes now. I don't know what episode this is, but on my channel, I'm talking all about self-realization, consciousness, spiritual awakening, and all of those great things. I'm Corey, and this is Deanna. And this was me and mine. So, yeah, click that next video. We got more content just like this one. Much love.
Bye.